Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Well, hey there, beautiful.
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to the other man in the room. Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Oh, hey there.
Oh my gosh. I was just thinking before we started, I don't know why this story popped in my head, but we were over at our friends the other night.
Okay.
And we have a This Is Us night.
Oh, uh-huh. I have no idea where you're going with this.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll
Okay.
just go somewhere.
I'm
with
in
it.
the journey with you.
You don't need to be in my head. But we always go over to our friend's house, like usually Thursday nights. We have a This Is Us night because This Is Us is amazing.
It's like our small group.
Uh-huh.
Where we all do like quick life updates and then all cry together.
We all wear our pajamas, kind of like sweats and shirts, and just curl up on a couch, and there's like 6 of us. But anyways.
It's so much fun.
So I don't know why this went through my head, but I like walk in and everyone goes to the kitchen and they have their little daughter, Carice.
Uh-huh.
And she's just so cute.
She's, I think, like 3.
Yeah, she's like 3. I was literally there for her birth. I was in the birthing room when she was being birthed.
You helped her mom.
Mm-hmm. And I was there with Doug, and I was like, Doug, your baby's coming out. Look down here. And he's like, I don't know what's happening. And we're both crying together.
Oh, yeah. You actually were quite moved by being in the birth room.
I was rocked by being in the birthing room. And by the way,
you cried like a little baby.
You little baby. Yeah, as a side note, Katrina was like a rock star. I mean, like for her to like be that vulnerable, like, yeah. I'm going to bring you into the birthing room. And there's a whole story as to why.
Well, you should share a little bit of why, because people are going to be like, that's so random.
I know.
It doesn't matter. They'll like it.
Yeah. But as a side note, so Carice, like I was there at her.
No, wait, share this story.
Oh,
like why she had you in there.
Well, Katrina's background was, I'm not going to go into detail just not to uncover her, but really there's a journey.
She wanted family.
She wanted family.
She
definitely wanted family
in the room.
And I told her in our relationship, I'd been kind of like an older brother or something in her world. And I was like, Katrina, I know this sounds wild. Probably a lot of people wouldn't do this, but if you want me to be in the birthing room and be in the process with you as you're going into labor and anything I can do, I'll do it. Like, I don't care. I'll be available. And she's like, that's really interesting. I need to talk to Doug about that. Like, I don't know how I feel with you just being as a baby just coming out of me.
Totally. And it was her first kid. She'd never gone through it again before. But she really wanted family, and there wasn't an option for that.
No, there wasn't.
For that time.
For that experience. So I ended up at the hospital, and she was like screaming. This is before she was even in the labor room. She was just like.
But she ended up deciding, I think I'd like you there, but I don't know.
But I don't want you in the actual room. Just be here before I go to the room for the baby to happen. But then so she leaves me and goes in because they're getting closer to potentially the baby coming, and then. There's lots of screaming down the hall. And then Doug, I think it was Doug or somebody comes running to the room and is like, Katrina wants you in the room, I guess. You need to get in here. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Because
she
it brought
wanted
comfort.
You.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you went and you spoke to her body, didn't you?
Yeah. And told it that it could relax, that it was safe. It was actually, it sounded like it was really helpful having me there. I don't know, but she was probably in another place anyways in her head.
Well, she really wanted you there.
Yeah, she really did. And so I ended up being part of that. And so that was really beautiful. Me and another friend named Justine.
Yeah,
that's
what's
hysterical. Justin was holding one leg. Justine was holding the other leg. And Doug was just like, what am I doing? We always laugh about that.
It's overwhelming to have a child.
Mm-hmm. So anyways.
And you guys had to flip her a bunch, didn't you?
We had to help lift her up and things and stuff. It was, I don't know. There was a lot that went into it. Yeah. At one point, as she's just kind of laying naked there on the table with the baby in her arms, I'm like, all right, if I stay any longer, this is going to get really awkward. The medical part is over.
The medical part is done. Like, I'm out.
I'm like, Doug, you got this? Okay, I'm going.
Totally. But you wept like a little baby.
I did. I cried. I was just like, this
is a miracle.
Doug, you have a baby, and I was here. I'm like one of the only men that gets to be part of that that's not a doctor. So I felt like
or
it was
a dad.
Gift. Yeah. Anyways, back to Carice. So I was there as the beautiful baby came into the world, and this next moment is where I want to take this child out of the world. I look over at Carice and she's watching TV, and I start walking over to her, smiling.
It's like, hang out.
But she's in her zone watching TV, and I'm like, hey, and I go to reach down to her, and she looks over at me.
Wait, which people should know, you're like a child whisperer. Children love you.
They do.
They love, because you like play, you're like hysterical, you get down on their level.
Fun Uncle Justin is always involved playing games.
Yeah, you're
stuff
like
that.
Legitimate their favorite. So on a regular basis, all the kids have flocked to you.
Yeah, totally. So all of a sudden, she looks over and she looks up at me with this mischievous look. Like half grin, half like, and I'm like, hey, and all of a sudden, bam, right in my nuts, just kicks me.
Kicked so hard. She just wound up and kicked.
I was like, it took everything.
All your self-control.
All my self-control to not scream, you little a-hole, I'm going to end your life. And I roll out into the kitchen. And
you slide down the wall.
I slid down the wall. I literally was not overacting. Everyone's like, what is happening?
You're
like, I go, Grace, kick me. Into nuts. And that's when like Katrina was like, oh no, she didn't.
Oh yeah, they're good parents.
They're such good parents. Mm-hmm. She was kindly drug into the kitchen and like, let's talk to Uncle Justin.
Do you see what you did? Do you see what you did? You're like still on the floor, like red face.
I can't breathe still.
Can't breathe.
But I did.
She made her apologize.
It took everything in me not to scream and yell at this child.
Oh yeah. Totally.
And today we're going to talk about yelling in marriage.
That's a weird transition.
I know. The story was so funny.
I loved that story so much because there was nothing that led up to it.
No.
It was like so random. You wouldn't have ever known. That girl's a fighter.
No,
She's
is.
going to be powerful.
There's this part of me that's like, I hate you a little bit.
But also you respect her.
But I respect her. I'm like, no.
Yeah, because that's what you would want. If your kid did that, you would love it.
It's true. If she was my kid, I'd be like, way to be a boss.
Yeah, totally.
You're going to own life.
Yep.
You're not going to let anyone F with you. But I really did it. It took me everything not to yell at her. But I thought of this because today we're going to talk about a fight that we had.
What?
And, strong emotions.
We fight?
And explosions.
That's not even true.
It made me think of it. All of a sudden, it just sprang into my head how it took everything in me not to destroy this child for kicking me square in the nuts. It took me like 5 or 6 minutes to get off the floor.
Oh, you were there.
That was not exaggeration.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but I felt like this
good lead in.
Yeah, because sometimes in life it feels like we get a little kick to the nuts from our spouse.
I never feel kicked in the nuts. That's not even a sensation I can imagine.
Welcome to a man's world.
Oh, totally.
But we're going to take you guys on a journey.
We're going to tell you about how I literally kicked him in the nuts last night. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that didn't actually happen.
Nope.
But we're going to take you on a journey of one of our squabbles.
Yeah, what our fights look like and how we process through them.
Yeah, because this is a really good one. And this is like, how do we reconnect? And we've talked a little bit before about the disconnection, even in making the connected life in like our first episode, I think.
Yeah.
But we like to invite people into the messy things. And this is one of those messy things.
I try to post whenever we fight on Instagram because I really want to create a world where people are seeing that there is like what real looks like. Like we have I think we have one of the best marriages ever, but we still fight.
Best does not mean just big smiles across your face 24/7.
Oh yeah. So I want there to be a realistic idea of what marriage is because single people either live in a fantasy, and so then when they date and there's conflict, they're like, well, you must not be the one.
Oh my gosh. We had a disagreement. We didn't like each other. He stormed off. He must be a rage monster.
Totally. Or married people they either have tons of shame because they're like, no one else is having fights like this.
Oh, that's so true.
Or they're like, it's just messy.
I heard one couple, they were a pastor and he was talking about how they had never had a fight their entire marriage. And so I was like, either you guys are really compartmentalized and one of you is like
shove it under the rug.
Shove it under the rug, or one of you is the rug that gets trampled on all the time. or you're deeply not self-aware, or you are magical beings, and one day I may be like you, but until then,
totally.
Welcome to the connected life.
Welcome to the for all the other people. Those couples don't need to listen, but they can get a good kick out of how our lives are.
Yeah, they can laugh at how dysfunctional we are.
Yeah, but for everybody else who doesn't have a perfect relationship, welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, that's real. So, how do you want me to start this off, or do you want to like kick into it?
Well, this is how it started. It started because we have been working on a lot of projects, me and you together. And the workload has kind of been a little bit lopsided, although it's not like I'm not working.
No, you're totally working.
I do a lot of
It's
things,
just that I do the majority of things, and you get away scot-free and just get to look pretty and present yourself. It's cool. After we're done with this, I'll totally go edit it and get it up for everyone to listen to.
Well, okay. So you do a lot of the technical details. Now, in all fairness,
I'm just joking. I don't actually feel like you don't do enough or something.
I know. I'm the best. I'm the whole reason everything in our life is good. I'm not concerned about that. Something you have to know before we go into our fights is that we both have very healthy self-esteems.
We do.
So when we joke a lot about things, it doesn't feel painful.
Yeah, we make sarcastic jokes about stuff.
Yeah, because it's just funny to me.
Yeah.
So we've been working really hard, and I feel like I've contributed a lot. So I in no way feel like I'm not contributing.
Yeah, you definitely have.
But there have been a lot. He's done a lot of technical details that he doesn't want to take the time to train me on. Like, let's be honest, you don't want to take the time to train somebody on because you're still learning it all and you're trying to figure it all out.
I'm trying to gather the information really well so I can train someone really well. And it's also going to take me double time
to do that.
To train somebody.
And we don't have that time yet.
In this season. So after this season's over, then I sit someone down and go, well,
here's it all.
If I had my hair, I would be bald by now anyways. I've lost my eyebrows.
Yes.
Because I'm so stressed. Now
totally.
Take this.
So, all that to say, you've had more workload than me, and there was an opportunity that came up that we would have to do together.
Yeah.
And it was just an hour. It would only be an hour.
Abby, I'm laughing because you're like, just an hour. No.
Yes.
There between driving time and other things.
Okay, 2 hours tops.
2 hours tops.
Yeah.
With a speaking engagement coming up this weekend.
Yeah, no, there's lots of
things.
things.
With 2 full days of clients.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm not belittling
Totally.
I'm just saying.
When she uses the word just.
You're like, no, it means so much more than that. And it's something you have to be really present for. So
it's real.
But here's the thing. I wanted to bring up this idea to you and immediately felt like you just I don't even have the capacity to talk about anything. And I'm thinking, but this is actually a really smart decision. It's really wise. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah. It's a great opportunity. Yeah.
But I felt like you were shut down.
You brought it up a few days prior.
And you said, I can't talk about it.
No, I said no.
Yeah, you did, but I didn't even explain it.
No, I didn't even explain it. I was like, I don't need to explain. No.
No, I got like one word out of my mouth and you said no.
We do this. I'm like, no.
But I was like, well, he doesn't actually understand how simple this is going to be.
Sure.
So I just wanted to be able to have one. And I actually don't mind if you set boundaries with me.
No, totally. Yeah.
But I want it to be heard so that I know that you understand what you're saying no to. That's kind of how I feel. Like, I want us to be able to at least process. I want to be able to say why I think it could be good. And if you've heard me and you don't think it's a good idea, I feel fine with it now.
I don't think that, okay, for all of you listening, I know that you're confused because you're like, wait, I thought a woman was meant to be seen and not heard. And this woman's trying to talk. Clearly she doesn't, and I don't understand her either, right? Like we all get that concept, and still she's like, oh, but I want to have a conversation.
This is funny. I know, crazy that I would want that.
Crazy that you
anyway, so I bring it up and you're still overwhelmed and shut down and you don't want to do it, and it creates, you start talking about how overwhelmed you feel.
Well, so she brings it up again. And I immediately...
Again, being just the second time.
Or
and you
third.
No, second.
It was
it was the second. And we had
welcome to marriage. You remember things different. But I didn't have any negative emotions about you bringing it up.
Totally.
I actually didn't. I was like, in the back of my head, I was like, oh, I should probably set her up for success by helping her understand where I'm at.
That is not how I experienced it, though.
Sure. We both had a very different experience.
This is the thing about fighting. Can I just say
about disagreements in marriage and intimacy and relationships?
Here's the thing. People are always like, no, I know what he meant by it. No, I know what she meant by it. No, I understand. I'm like, I've been married to you for 10 years and I know you better than any human on the planet. And I know how you think and why you think. And I've seen patterns of your behaviors. And 10 years, almost 11 years in, I still, like, we completely missed it on this.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, what I thought you were saying was nothing of what you were saying.
Not at all.
What you thought you were saying is nothing of what you were saying.
Of what you heard.
No, you didn't say it. You didn't say it. But so, this is step number 1 in fights with your spouse is you actually have to have the humility to understand that even though you can, like, and I will tell him, like, no, you literally said this. And he'll be like, no, I didn't. I'm like, this is crazy. This is crazy. We need a videotape. We need a VCR.
I know. I think that all the time. I think everyone in marriage or intimate relationships always thinks this needed to be recorded so they could hear how they were wrong.
Totally.
Have you ever secretly recorded me?
No, but I've thought about it.
I've done it to you.
You have?
Oh, I totally did.
But did it not work?
Well, no, I was a couple years into marriage, and literally when I replayed it, you were totally crazy. And I was like, she's just going to be more angry that I recorded this, so I deleted it. I was like, no, I clearly won that. But then she's going to be like, why did you record me?
That's true.
I was like, I'll win. I'll lose no matter what on this one.
Yeah, that's probably true. Secret recordings don't work.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so doesn't really, do we need to explain? We don't even need to explain the fight. Basically, we had a miscommunication, unless you think we need to explain it.
I would like to just invite them into it. I did begin to say, hey, babe, I've been feeling really overwhelmed in this season. I don't think you.
Not how you said it.
Yeah, I did.
No,
see, this is funny. So you guys get to partake even in this.
This sounds so calm and nice.
You're
like,
was.
I'm so overwhelmed.
I was.
I can't handle anything.
No,
you don't know what it's been like.
No, I was not intense. And see, that's the thing. Even right now, as we're doing this, that's what happens. Because I was like, oh yeah, no, totally. Like, I don't think you really understand.
Like, oh, babe. I don't know. I'm just feeling a little stressed.
I think you read way too much into my body language and my facial language or something. Because I'm
okay.
like, yeah, I don't think you understand in this season. I don't think you're hearing where I'm at. So I've actually been really overwhelmed because I'm tackling all these things and I'm feeling trapped inside of myself to help you understand that. I don't know how to make sure that you understand, like, where I'm at inside of this. And it feels much like a past season when I was really sick and I couldn't actually communicate how bad it was inside of my body. So I'm just trying to tell you this is where I'm at so that you know that.
But you also threw in, you're running over my boundaries. I'm saying that because what ended up happening is the way you communicated it very much sounded like, Abi, you keep pushing me, even though I'm at the end of my rope. You keep pushing. And so I was listening, being like, I'm confused because I've actually heard you. I know how at the end of your capacity you are. I see you. I've watched it. I've heard you. So I don't feel like it's new information to me. I didn't feel like I was pushing you. And there'd been so many times where I've told you, like, don't come to this. Let's cancel this. Hey, maybe we should take a day off and come back to it. Hey, what if I got people to help with this? What if I got people to help with this? Like, I've actually really tried to take things off of your shoulders because I've seen that it's killing you. It's killing you softly. It is. It's killing you hardly, actually, probably. So I'm sitting there being like, it feels like you are blaming me just because I'm bringing up this idea.
Right. And
I'm like, I'm not going to force you to do this idea, but we just need to talk about it. We're business partners. It's a business opportunity.
Right.
We need to have the conversation. And if you shortcut from me even being able to talk about it, that doesn't feel like business partners.
Totally. So, but what I was so there's a misunderstanding that starts taking place where I start hearing what I perceive to be a strong rebuttal from her. And I'm like, why? In my head, I'm like, why am I being rebuttaled?
Right. Because my rebuttal is like, I've been fighting for you. I don't want you to be run over.
And I'm like, I'm not trying to attack you right now. I'm just trying to share. And so then I'm like, then I start getting really angry because there's a spot inside of our marriage where.
In the first year? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, there's a conversation of seeking to understand, and I feel like I'm trying to say like, hey, I don't feel like you're seeking to understand me.
Yeah.
Like, and I think you're hearing me saying, oh, Justin's verbally processing.
You don't say that. You say, you should ask me more questions.
No,
That's what you always say. Why aren't you asking me more questions?
Well, what I'm saying is when you jump to conclusions and get frustrated, it feels like instead of starting with, this feels frustrating. I wonder if this is what he's communicating because I can feel myself getting frustrated. It feels like you jump to a conclusion rather than saying something like, is this what you're trying to communicate?
Blaming me?
Are you blaming me? Because I'm hearing a lot of blame coming out of you.
But I get so annoyed when you're like, you should ask more questions. I'm like, I don't have any questions. I heard you, and I have things I wanted to say.
So
no, there are lots of times I do ask more questions, though.
There's a breakdown that's starting to happen in communication,
yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling like, on my end, oh my God, like this is not going well. I am literally here.
What gave you the clue it wasn't going well? I'm just kidding.
The escalating sound of each other's voices.
I wasn't loud at that point. I was in about this loud. My podcast loud voice.
Your podcast loud voice,
which apparently is loud.
I don't remember. So I'll give you a freebie on that and go. That's where you're at. I don't know.
I wasn't upset yet because I was just like trying to understand.
So I'm these emotions are building because I'm over here trying to in my head I'm like I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to like give her insight. I'm being vulnerable.
You were being vulnerable. I didn't know you were being
super vulnerable. Going like here's where I'm at. I'm trying to invite her into my whole thing, and I'm being met with what feels like opposition and rebuttal,
right?
And being shut down. I'm like, holy crap. When I am doing everything possible in this moment to set us up for success, this doesn't feel like it's working well for me.
Which has happened so often with couples that I do marriage consulting with, is you get in the biggest fights when you're doing the most right. When you're being the most vulnerable and you're trying your hardest, because there's like this hopeless thing that happens inside of you that when you're like, if I'm trying my hardest and doing this and you're still not responding well, I mean, like that's when people have their biggest blow ups. I actually try to tell my couples that because I'm like, now here I'm giving you some tools, but when you use them, it's going to be like this big explosion. And the thing that I want to say, again, this goes back to we think we can understand. No idea that you are like sharing vulnerably. To me, you're just sharing information. I'm at the end of my rope. I can't handle more. That doesn't feel like vulnerable. That feels like information. There's a difference between information and like softening yourself and opening yourself up to somebody. And so when I know you're being vulnerable, and actually that's like really good communication, when I like say like, hey, this is really vulnerable for me, or I'm trying really hard and being vulnerable, it often gives me like flags to pay more attention. So when I rebuttal you and that frustrates you, I have no idea why that frustrates you because I didn't know you were being vulnerable. So I'm like, I'm just talking back at you the same way you just talked at me.
And in my head, I'm like, how is it not clear? I'm telling you how horrible my world is right now, and now you're arguing with that. Can't you see how big this issue is? And I wasn't arguing that your world was horrible. I was arguing like, no, I know. I'm not running over your boundaries. I want to protect you in this season. Don't blame me. Like it felt like this. So we were doing a back and forth. We both misunderstood. Yeah, totally misunderstood. So all of a sudden, I lose it. I explode. I start screaming and yelling, and I cuss at her. And I go charging over her direction. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Blah, blah, blah. And I just cuss at her. And then she flips out back at me.
Yes, I do.
And it gets very aggressive on her end. Mm-hmm. And then immediately I'm like, okay, I have just at this point crossed all sane boundaries on my end.
Yes.
Where I feel like if I stick around here anymore, this is going to escalate into craziness.
Totally. And we need to define that. Like,
right.
First of all, we don't fight like this very often.
Yes, this is not our normal. However, we had explosions.
It was
like
our
this
normal in the first
couple of years of marriage. Yeah. We would have these explosions and yell and just freak out and storm around and
totally. Yeah. So this is not our normal now. And when you say like I didn't want to stick around because it could get crazy, all he means by that is just lots of yelling and screaming.
Yeah, just more
and
intensity.
Maybe saying things that you regret later.
Yeah, that you're going to have to go, oh, I really wish I hadn't have said that, and that really hurt her heart by saying that, or she hurt me by saying, like both of us are at the point where we're wielding knives. It's like a couple of monkeys in a knife fight where the two monkeys start getting squirrely and looking for the knives and going crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I've never seen that.
Oh, I
That's
can
a weird
see that
picture.
Have you ever heard of monkeys in a knife fight?
No.
No? Oh my gosh.
I've never seen it or heard of it, but that's something I'm going to YouTube after this. Monkeys in a knife fight.
Two monkeys in a knife fight.
Yeah.
So anyways, at that point, and there's places inside of relationships where there is a tipping point.
Oh yeah.
Where we're going to cross a line with each other for whatever our line is. That's going to get us to a messy place where it's going to lead to potentially a lot of tears as far as having to make up because we really hurt each other. Yep. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
I know the signs of it. And that sign was screaming at me the minute I started yelling. And I'm like, that's not my standard anymore to yell. That's not our standard to do that.
Yeah, that's not actually where we live now.
As a side note, talking about standards, everyone in relationships need to have standards. Yeah. So that standard, when you cross that standard, you go, hey, our standard is this is how we exchange in disconnections or confrontations. And when we pass this standard, we need to
take ownership.
We take ownership. We take timeouts, and it should be a flag for you.
Yeah.
So we have 100%. A standard that yelling at each other is not okay.
Absolutely. And so you decided to leave, which is something that we have found so helpful in our marriage.
Right. Which people in marriages, when it comes to leaving.
Or, dating.
Dating, whatever.
Yeah.
In relationships, a lot of times leaving is done in such a terrible way that leaving feels
because
really
it's
terrifying.
Like I run out the door and I'm punishing you by leaving. I'm abandoning you. I'm removing love from you.
It's literally middle fingers up the entire way out, and it's promises of I'm not returning.
Oh yeah.
I want a divorce or weird stuff.
And that's horrible.
Yeah.
That feels horrible. It feels painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not talking about that. And actually that's one of the standards we have too. We're allowed to leave because both me and you, when you're triggered, so you've got to think, the imagination I have is when you're triggered, your all of your protectors go up, which means your brain and your heart capacity to get to another person is shut down. Yeah. And you don't think logically in the same way.
Yeah, your only concern is self-protection, survival, right?
Yeah. So our job is when we find ourselves triggered to step away. Mm-hmm. And then actually figure out how to get our walls back down so that we can come back together. So stepping away is protecting our connection. That's the goal. We don't step away to prove a point to the other person. We step away to protect connection. It's going to be worse if we stay together. I need to go connect to myself again. I need to get under my trigger and figure me out before we continue this conversation.
Right. So on my end, I am rigorously packing up my satchel with my computer and stuff. And I'm like, nope, not going to do this. I got to go. I'll be back later.
And that's something in our standard for leaving. We can leave, but we have to communicate. I'll be back and we will work through this. Yep. So I'm not leaving like we're never going to talk through this again. And I'm not leaving and then forgetting the fight.
Yeah. Like, oh, hey, we're all good again.
Totally. I'll be back.
Which a lot of people break away from a moment and then they never revisit it.
Right.
And so it just builds resentment
and
fear and all kinds of stuff because
it keeps the cycle repeating.
The purpose is more avoidance than it is connection. Totally. So for us, I am protecting connection by leaving. What little connection there is.
Totally. Well, you're protecting our future connection.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that it's valuable to say that it really hurts the first few times, like when we started implementing that we could leave.
Well, let me back up. In my childhood, when exposing my mom here, and she would talk openly about this, but when they had fights, my mom would leave. She would storm off and say, I'm leaving you. Yeah. And pack bags would happen. And mom would get in a car and drive off. And then dad would leave the house and go after her. So early on in marriage, I would have like a total mental breakdown internally or internal emotional breakdown when Abby would want to leave because I'm like, this means my marriage is over.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It communicated this devastating thing for me.
Absolutely.
And so I would go into complete sob cries. If Abby left the house, I'd be into sob crying. Like, what's happening?
Oh, yeah.
My world's falling apart. So I had to deal with that in the past. But we got to a healthy place.
And I had lots of abandonment issues, too, that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
So Justin, for the first few years.
You lived in denial.
Oh, yeah. Listen, it's true. We should actually do an episode on my denial and how that affected our marriage.
Oh, my gosh. That'd be great.
It'd be so validating
you
for
tell
you.
on yourself.
I can tell on myself. And about how, yeah, it'd be great. Anyway, so when the first few times when you left, because before we set it as a standard. So you have to set it as a standard when you're not in a fight.
Right.
Where you actually have communication and you decide together, hey, we're both okay with this, but this is how we want it. We want to do it. We want to do it with love.
And healthy things is like, hey, letting you know that as I leave, I'm going to tell you how long I'm going to be gone for. I'll check in 30 minutes or I'll check back in an hour. I just need to go out and breathe. And I do want to return to this.
Yeah. And if we're really good, we'll say, I love you, but I need to go.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If not, it's just...
I'll be back.
Yeah.
When I can say I love you.
Which I'm pretty sure I said I'll be back.
Yes, you did. But all I want to say is if you're a couple and you try that, or just your friends or whatever, and you try that, it might be painful because anybody who has abandonment buttons, anybody who has fear of loss, anybody who's been punished, we have all these triggers from our childhood that show up. And so it might feel horrible to you, but you can redefine actions and reactions. So now when Justin leaves, it doesn't feel pain because I know he's coming back. Mm-hmm. We've built a history that when we separate in a fight, that doesn't mean that we never get to be heard. It doesn't mean that we never talk through things. It doesn't mean that he's going to be an a-hole. It means we are going to both be okay and we have a better chance of talking through this in a healthy way.
Right. So I come to the office, which is a little safe haven where I go to work on some work and blow off some steam. Uh-huh. And in it, I get a text message from Abby and, she says, I'm sorry that I yelled at you and said demeaning things. No matter what you do, it's not okay for me to do that. And that text message comes in. I'm like, I don't care. I do not want to respond to that.
Well, because this is the thing. Because we've set a standard, like it is not, I have decided it used to be, I can do this because you did this. So you yelled at me, so it's okay that I yelled back.
Right.
You cussed at me, so it's okay that I cussed back. I'm allowed to do whatever you do. That's the mindset I had in marriage.
Right.
Like if you break the standard, I'm going to break the standard right with you because you broke it.
Yeah.
But in counseling, I have realized that like it does not matter what you do. Mm-hmm. I'm powerful over me.
Yeah.
I have to be responsible for my portion. And so I'm pretty much as fast as I can because I also feel like the better I hold the standard, the more the standard can be used against you. Just to be honest, I'm like the better I hold the standard of not yelling, not cussing, not whatever it would be, not getting intense. When I hold that standard, then you don't have any ammo to use against me. And then if you're being crazy, it's clearly that you're being crazy.
Right.
And so so I immediately want to apologize anytime I break the standard.
Yeah. I have guys who will come in and be like, how do I handle this? And legitimately their wives are over the top and need to be put in check. Like their wives are not being healthy.
Totally.
But I tell the men, I'm like,
you lead by example.
You got to lead by example and you have to be consistent because she may have yelled at you 20 times this week and you yelled back once. But as long as you have that one time yell back at her, she has something that against you that she can have a mark against you. I said, be consistent at holding the standard for the next 3 to 6 months.
Totally.
And then when she keeps doing it, you get to go, hey, you don't have anyone to blame. Right. You need to go own yourself. I'm actually managing myself really well on this end.
So I immediately sent a text because I was like, I want to say that you can actually have core values that you create that work in triggers. Like the more you believe it, the more you do it, the more it works in a trigger. So I knew immediately, like I went into self-protection. I felt like it triggered me from past circumstances in our marriage. And I felt all of my protectors go up, and my protectors mirror what is happening. So like if you're yelling at me, my protectors are like, I will take it back.
If I take yelling to a level 7, you're going to take it to a level 8. You're going to match it.
Well, I'm at least going to match it. Yeah, because it
and let me know that like you're not going to run me over on this or something.
Yeah, you're not going to destroy me is basically my thing. And so immediately I knew. Now, it wasn't even like we had a long fight. This all happened. No, the fight we're talking about happened in less than 5 minutes.
Oh, I would say that the intensity of the exchange happened within 20 seconds.
Yeah, totally. So
like it was.
Yeah, it was real quick.
It was building within the 5-minute conversation. We were frustrated,
but then
the explosion was like
20 seconds. Yep.
And then bam, out.
I agree.
So it wasn't an ongoing thing.
Yeah, it was real short. But so immediately I was like, I have to take ownership because it's never okay. Even if everything he did was wrong, it is never okay for me to do this.
Yeah. So you in the text message, she writes, if you need to verbally process and you need me to ask questions, then you need to tell me that's what you're needing. Just like I tell you, I need to be heard or verbally process. I can't read your mind, but really try to adjust when I understand what is happening in your heart. This thing of you should ask me more questions, that's you saying there's something you are wanting, but you aren't telling me in advance.
Totally.
I hear that you feel powerless and run over. I haven't pushed boundaries once in this process, have avoided tons of conversations, have pushed for getting you help, have pushed for you to have downtime and relax. I'm not your problem. I'm not running over you. I didn't even ask you to come last night, which attend something to an event. I feel like you're taking out your feeling of powerlessness on me. To which I go, no, that's not it. You're jumping to judgment. When I share my heart with you, it's not that I just need you to ask questions. I'm trying to tell you the way you're responding isn't coming across in a way that is you seeking to understand. It comes across as you jumping into arguing and trying to rebuttal me. And then she writes, but I don't have any questions.
Which is true. I'm literally sitting there being like, you always tell me in fights, you need to ask more questions. And I'm like, I don't have any to ask. So I don't know what to do.
To which I wrote, yeah, that's very clear. So she wrote, so I can validate you or ask you questions if you need to verbally process, or I can share back my heart. That's what I'm capable of. So you'll have to be.
If you're saying I need to verbally process, can you ask me questions so that I can share more of my feelings? I get that kind of question asking.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, hey, if you need me to ask you questions, if you need me to do those kinds, I can.
And so the subcontext for me, again, on my end is like, no, I'm not asking you to ask me questions. I'm ultimately trying to say, if you suddenly feel like something is wrong in what I'm saying, I need you to seek to understand.
So you're saying, please don't assume.
Please don't assume my intentions. If you're suddenly getting frustrated,
right?
Actually go, what's happening here? Right. Totally. So we're, and I know it. I'm like, she's not hearing me. Apparently I'm not hearing her or something. We're on two separate playing fields. It's like speaking Chinese and Russian to each other. So she goes, so you'll have to be fine with one of those and communicate what you need.
And I wasn't trying to be snotty. I was just saying, like, here are the 3 options I can give you. I don't know how to give you this other thing that you're asking. I don't even understand what it is. I don't even understand, like, how you want me to do that. Here are 3 options that you can have. If you ask me to do one of these, I would be happy to.
So the subcontext of this sounds snotty to me.
Well, no,
No, hold on.
You're saying in the text or right now?
In the text.
Oh, yeah.
No, now. You're being real snotty about this.
Totally.
No, I'm saying in the text.
Oh, yeah. You think I'm just like, well, this is what I can do.
Yeah.
Which wasn't. Yeah. I was trying to be like, here's some clear expectations.
Right. So which I say, cool. Which, is 1,000 times better than probably in the early days where if I had the middle finger emoji con, I would have given it back to you and just gone on with life.
Cool was great.
Yeah, cool. Which means I'm done with this conversation via text. And so, which she responds, I love you. I'm so sorry you feel so overwhelmed. As a side note, inside of this text exchange, we in society today oftentimes feel like it's ideal to process problems via text message. It is the worst place to process problems. Now, I'm not saying that she did wrong by reaching out or anything. I'm just saying, had we gone deeper into this, there is never a win, because you can never hear the voice or see the facial expressions.
Oh, I know.
You get to make up
and
your own world.
And people always make up. No, I know what he meant by this.
I know what you meant by this text.
Nope.
And I've been in text conversations, very simple ones, exchanged with people. I've said stuff and they're like, no, you are being mean and condescending. I'm like,
oh, no.
Oh, not at all.
No.
I really meant sorry.
Totally.
There. I don't wish you would try not to, do an exchange over text. So as a side note, in intimate relationships, to go very deep inside of exchanges via text message is not the way to do it.
We've never
accomplished. If you need an initial like, hey, I love you. I actually want to work through some of this. If you want to say, here's my heart, I'm not being condescending when I say this. I really mean this is what I can give.
So pretty much you can communicate positive things through text in the middle of a fight.
Yep. And be deliberate about your intention and what you're doing. But
Go
ahead. I'm just saying I want to address that, because so many people try and exchange it because they're scared to have the conversation face to face, or they're too heated still.
Oh, yeah. And that's what happens. You think that you're still so heated. You think that text will be a better thing, but it doesn't actually buffer you. You need to actually come down.
I have done voice texts, actual voice messages through the text message. Yeah, there's been times where I've responded like, hey, I love you. I can't really. Yeah. So you can hear my voice. It wasn't just a text. It is only
the positive thing. And one thing we'll say that we have gotten really good at practicing is letting each other know, like, hey, I love you. As small as that is, like just, hey, I'm with you.
I care about
you. I know that we're going to make it to the other side.
Yep.
One of the things Justin is brilliant at, we'll do a whole podcast on it, just is vision casting in fights.
Right.
And so he's always going to be like, I love you. We're going to make it through this. I'm not scared. We're not going to make it through it anymore. But you're always pretty much like declaring over the conflict. Yeah. I love you. I'm with you. We'll figure this out.
Totally. So anyways, I spend my time stewing at the office and get some work done, and I may have played one round of Call of Duty. I don't know.
I'm sure he played several.
I can't remember what actually happened in that. So I come back home, and as I walk through the door back home, I'm on the phone with someone because I had to make a phone call. And it was also very convenient, so I didn't have to talk to you.
And I'm still like, listen, I was frustrated because you broke the standard first, and that felt really painful to me.
Yeah.
And so I was not real in the mood. Like for me, in order to soften when it feels like like when you do something that is not normal. So you don't normally yell and you don't normally cuss. And so when something like that happens, for me, typically I need there to be some acknowledgement, hey, it wasn't okay that I did that. Even if we don't talk through our fights, for me to be able to relax. So I didn't feel hardened towards you, but I didn't feel like, oh, I want to hang out. Let's talk.
And somewhere inside of me, I wasn't sorry yet.
Yeah, totally.
And I wasn't going to say I was sorry because I would be met with, I don't think you're sorry. I think you're just saying that.
Which is true. I would have, and I would have been pissed. I don't want a fake apology.
So I wasn't sorry because it's not that I wasn't sorry about how I expressed myself. It's that I couldn't get to a feeling of sorrow because I'm like, there's a hurdle over here that we haven't dealt with, and I'm so frustrated about this other hurdle of communication that we need to look at.
Right.
That I don't even know how to look at my stuff right
Totally.
Now. So I was like, the best I can do is walk in and mind my business back and forth as we're crossing each other silently in the bedroom.
Totally.
And I jump in the shower.
And then we watch a show together, and this is what I'll say, like, that we both kind of do is, and it normally takes, like, all of us to do this. It maybe just, like, I think I just reached my hand over and put it on your arm.
That's
like,
it.
Very slowly.
In bed, and you just put it
all
there.
I can do. All that is like, I'm literally, like, saying with my body, like, I love you. I don't want to talk through things with you yet, but I do remember that our connection is the most important to me, and I'm not going to punish you. I'm not disconnecting from you forever. Like, hey there.
Hey.
It's just like a little, and that's something we've always done. If we can't find words, just reach out your hand.
Yep.
Just put your hand on their shoulder, put your hand on their arm.
So at some point you end up pulling your hand away because you have to do something on your phone.
Yeah.
To which I then slowly extend my arm back over to you and put it on you.
So I knew, okay, we both have a peace offering.
Nonverbal communication says.
We both are in this. Okay.
Yep.
And then we have a history of, and I've said this before in our marriage, like some people can't go to bed before they've figured it out. We have learned that when we are tired, we are worse at fighting.
Yes.
Like that's one of our triggers. So it's not a good idea for us to go into it then.
If we're that tired. No.
Nope.
But we've also created a history
where
of
we always come back.
We know we're going to come back to this. We definitely always follow up.
Yeah.
So the next day rolls around and I go on this entire journey inside of my soul. And at the end of the day, she brings up this whole thing. Do you want to say what you said?
No, I think that we don't have to go into that whole piece because I think what you recognize during the day is so good.
Well, no, I mean, it's the simple part is she goes, hey, I'm kind of bummed because you haven't said I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. And I said it just like that.
It was that simple. And I said, well, actually, yeah, I get that.
And it wasn't just like you need to always apologize whenever we fight. Like it's the standard thing. Like like because that is our kind of rule. Whenever we cross it, we take ownership for it. So I was like, oh, am I going to need to bring it up to have him do that? Has he forgotten it? What's happening? So I just, instead of accusing, see?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't accuse. Yeah. I just said I was bummed.
Yeah. And I said,
very casually.
I said, I totally get that. Let me kind of give you some background on what today was like for me.
Yeah. That
actually is relevant to the I'm sorry scenario. So I went and did some soul searching on and off throughout the day.
Now this is the magic. If you are listening to this is what you do. When you have a reaction, the goal is to actually figure out what is the reaction, what caused it that had nothing to do with the fight. It wasn't me that caused that reaction. I mean, really.
Yeah, no. Like the intensity of that reaction wasn't you. I had a million other choices I could have had inside of that. And so we can't make someone angry.
Right.
Although there are sometimes when people act in ways that feel very infuriating.
100%.
You can't make someone feel shame. You can't make someone be angry.
Right.
We get to, it's again, the idea that I get to choose how I manage my emotions in my heart and how I choose to interpret things and respond to stuff. And it's about being a powerful person.
Yep.
Right. So I'm doing some soul searching and verbally processing and working out stuff inside of myself. And I go, and I kind of start discovering my history. Like, I'm like, why in that moment, what's my other options?
Right.
And out loud, I'm just talking out options. And I'm seeing like, there are times in our marriage where my option is to go to vulnerable sadness. Where I'm just like, hey, I'm really hurting. I'm sad here. And it works well.
Oh my gosh.
Every time tears come up and all, not even in a manipulative way. I just access my feelings and then some tears come up and she's like, oh, I'm really sorry. And
yeah, because it's much easier for me to see how I've affected you than for you to just yell.
Right.
When you yell, I just yell and then we all yell. And then I'm just kidding. I try not to yell back if you yell, but
right. But there's a lot of mirroring that we both do with each other.
Totally. So when you get soft, it's so much easier for me to get soft. And I've seen this in lots of fights. When one person lowers their guard, the other person follows. That's why I tell people vulnerability is a better protector in relationships than anger is.
And I know that
vulnerability gets you hurt.
And I'm going to address some of this for some of you because there's some of you going, yeah, but when I let my walls down and get vulnerable, the person gets more aggressive and tells me like, stop crying, quit acting that way. Right. So for me, I know I'm sitting there processing and I'm like, I know that she's probably going to mirror the majority of my responses, and anger doesn't serve me well at all. Why am I still allowing it to be part of my responses? And so I'm digging into my history and I'm go, oh, okay. Yeah, when I was a kid and I got to a point where I was in a lot of pain and I started to cry, I was told, I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
You want something worse? I'll make it worse for you if you keep that up. And so there was this idea that like, okay, sadness or tenderness is going to get me even further obliterated.
Oh, yeah. Destroyed.
So at best, my option for survival is anger.
Yeah.
Right? So it may not make more connection, but it sure won't leave me punished or obliterated.
Yep.
So tenderness, sadness is equal
like
to...
they're going to give you more punishment if you do that.
It literally will cause further pain.
Right.
So inside of that, I'm going, okay, what's the reality inside of this? Well, the reality is, and I started internalizing this and having a conversation with my younger self. I could see myself as a young boy. And I said, Justin, the truth is that your tenderness and your softness and gentleness pays off inside of this marriage. The truth is you don't get punished more often. The truth is you get sympathy, empathy, and compassion when this happens. You are safe here in this place to go to this place. And so I'm just purposefully rewiring realities and truth for myself inside of that. And I've done that in different ways before in this area. That's why I have, very minimal explosions. But I was really seeing like, I really need to revisit this and have this conversation at a deeper level. And then as we look at this, so many of us, like the idea was, I told Abi, like in exchange with men, dude, with men, at some point, if another guy goes, rawr, I've crossed that line.
Totally.
This is clearly I have pushed. He's tried to set all the boundaries he can, and I'm not getting it. This means back away.
Right. And men use that. That's like a good communication skill.
That's usually what happens. We go, back away now.
Yeah. And there's not even normally like repercussions. That's just like a normal exchange in men.
Right. It's just a little like dog bite. Arr.
Right. It's exactly like that.
And it's funny because there's been something in the back of me of like, why in the heck does she not get this? In the journey of marriage, like,
totally.
Just friggin' get it. If I snapped, it's saying you have
crossed a boundary,
worn out every possible avenue for me.
Back off a little.
I am at the end of myself. Just give me some space. So I'm having to tell, I'm telling myself like that just won't work.
Right.
Reminding myself, you're going to be matched. But then the other thing is, being able to come to the conclusion that, and I actually, this part of a conversation was being had with my buddy Marcus, and, he actually said, he had said this piece. He said, yeah, but every time a guy does that and gets angry, he gets left all alone.
So I just want to point something out. Not only were you digging in, like, why do I do this? What does anger protect me? Why do I use it? Why don't I choose softness and to like just actually be present? Not only did you start checking in with that, you actually purposefully engaged having conversation about it with somebody so that you could get feedback. I'm trying to give people ideas on how to handle it in their own life. Because
I'm just verbally processing. I'm verbally processing with someone that's just not going to, take my side and obliterate Abi and be like, yeah, she's just horrible. Although he's very good at being able to be like, yeah, that'd probably be really frustrating.
Totally.
But, as I'm having my personal aha moments, as I'm getting these words out, he just says, yeah. And for those guys who are angry, and use anger, they end up being really alone. And I'm like, absolutely.
Why? Explain that.
Well, what happens is when we actually get angry, we create an island. It's not an invitation. We create an island rather than an invitation. Vulnerability is an invitation for you to be closer to me and to come participate in my sadness or my problem. But when I'm not vulnerable and I'm just, what I've just said is get away from my island. So they back off, they get away from our island, and now I'm alone and I'm perpetuating this isolation.
Totally.
So it intensifies the sense of feeling abandoned and alone in all of us, all people, men and women alike, but especially us as men who use that. It just leaves me feeling like, oh yeah, I'm alone. I'm alone when it comes to pain.
Yeah.
So I cross that threshold and have have that kind of moment with myself. And I don't know, was there something else specifically in that?
Well, I thought that was so, I just feel like this is so profound what you're saying. The anger does really create this wall, this chasm between, and you might be able to get somebody to back off, but then you're still alone. And I love this. I mean, I think it was so good for you to connect with. Okay, there was actually so much pain around being soft. And I think everybody is like this. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's probably a few people who grew up in like miraculous families, but even for me who grew up, you know, like there was so many things that you just learn the only way to survive, to protect yourself, to be okay.
Yep.
It could even just be watching a bully at school treat somebody else. You learn like, I have to be fine. I have to be powerful. I have to be on my own. And those protection mechanisms don't serve marriage well.
Yeah. I even, you said bullies. I've had guys come into my office who were like talking about their childhood and they're the most tender, loving kid. And now they're this mean, aggressive bulldozer. And like, yeah, when I was on the playground, I would cry because the kids were being so harsh towards me. And then they would even give it to me worse.
Yep. So you learn.
Again, the message.
Don't do that.
That does not serve me well. But as a powerful adult, it really can serve me well.
And it doesn't have to be crying. It can just be being tender.
Being tender and being like gentle and being like, that really hurts.
Yeah.
This is not feeling very good at all. Now, some of you might say, yeah, but in my marriage, I literally have a partner that tells me to suck it up. Your emotions are stupid. Well, as a powerful adult, you get to reset a standard and you get to say, hey, if I'm going to stick around inside of this marriage or this relationship, this dating relationship, you're going to have to figure out how to actually deal with me having some emotions, and you're going to have to learn how to respect the emotions that I do have, or I'm not sticking around much
And that
longer.
does not mean like, you're not talking about the people who have huge emotions all the time and manipulate.
No,
and
I'm not
talking
about people
and
who
then they're like, I get to feel
is
this.
Tears every 2 seconds and intense, like no.
And really, when we're talking about getting tenderness in the context we're talking about, it is a lot about being powerful.
Yeah.
So when you're being tender, you're sharing I statements instead of you statements.
Yeah.
Like, I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling abandoned. One of my this guy that I listen to their podcast sometimes, he is aware of his 4 main triggers. And so there will be times when he recognizes he's getting triggered, and he sometimes will have to step away, and then he'll come back and he'll be able to say, when this happened, it brought up my fear that I'm about to be abandoned, or I'm about to be rejected, or whatever. And it's really what we're talking about is vulnerability.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be crying. It doesn't have to be.
No, not at all. It doesn't have to be that. It could just be like, I'm not going to go hide. I'm not going to put all my walls up and become prickly and shut off or shut down.
Yeah. And I've got to say this, for me personally, I remember sitting in a counseling session. This was years ago, when your anger was more than it. I mean, you've dramatically changed. So it was when your anger was consistent. And I'm not saying my anger wasn't. My anger was consistent back. But I was in this meeting with the counselor and pretty much saying, like, I can't lay down anger because Justin's anger will obliterate me if I let go of my anger. And my counselor was like, actually, it's not protecting you. Like, it's not actually helping you.
Yeah.
It feels like it might be, but it's not. And what would be a better protector? And I really saw vulnerability as a better protector.
Well,
it flashed in front of me, and I could see all of a sudden, like, oh, actually, if I am soft and clear-headed and speaking my heart well and not jabbing and not accusing and not being mean and not saying you statements, I actually get heard better.
Totally.
So it is a better protector because it gets me closer to my goal. Anger doesn't get me closer to my goal. Anger keeps our conversation going longer and me being misunderstood more.
And in fact, the anger that you displayed in the marriage on your other side as a reaction only told me that this is who Abi is.
Totally.
She's this intense anger monster, and I need to keep my anger in order to survive her.
Yeah.
Because this is
so
who she is.
So we both had, and this happens in most marriages. They are both triggering and they are both using protectors. And and both people are saying, well, if the other person let their guard down, if the other person dropped their gun, then I would be able to. And that's what my counselor was saying. Like, hey, if he has anger problems the rest of your marriage, you're in control of you. Mm-hmm. You are only in control of you. You have got to find a better way to live life than to use anger as your protector.
So ultimately, to wrap this up, because we're getting to the end of this, but, you know, I just share just very vulnerably my process. I'm like, here's what I went through, you know, and here's my ahas. And what did that lead to?
Sex? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
It did lead to sex. It did lead to connection.
It did. I felt really loved and honored because what that tells me is I actually don't think what I did was okay. I don't think it enough that I spent time to figure out why am I doing my behavior and what beliefs do I need to change so that I can see my behavior change. You were so proactive and engaged, and then you processing with somebody, you taking time to survey your heart, asking God about what was going on inside of you, investigating. Like, I felt really honored and loved by that. That makes me feel safe. If you are proactively figuring out what needs to be rewired for you to not do that in the future, that feels really good to me.
Avoidance shatters trust.
Yes.
Proactivity rebuilds it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, quote that.
Yeah, quote that.
Yo.
Yeah, so it was, I mean, I felt very swoony, and I just, honestly, as a side note, sometimes Justin talks and I just get caught up in his words because there's so much wisdom. And so when he was sharing about what his revelations were, I was like, this is so good. This is really important. Yes, men are taught they can't do this, and women are taught, like, shove it under, don't feel, you know, all that stuff.
Totally.
And so, I do want to say one last thing. Often we are taught that sadness or tenderness or vulnerability is bad.
Right.
We are often taught anger is allowed.
Yeah. It's a permissible emotion, but the rest of them aren't permissible.
Yep.
And obviously there's some people that are like, anger's not allowed at all. There's a form of healthy anger.
Absolutely.
That says there's an injustice here. Acting out in that anger in destructive ways necessarily isn't healthy. So there's a point where anger crosses from something that seems righteous and right in its manner to something else, and you have to begin to learn the difference between the two as you go on the journey.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when anger turns into something that perpetuates destruction and pain in someone else, you've crossed out of healthy anger.
Yeah. And anger is valuable.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you're saying. Because I know a lot of people that they refuse to feel anger anytime.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm like, well, anger is a part of the grief process. So if you never feel anger, you actually never get through grief. Yep. So then you just have a lot built up inside, and that is messy.
And the truth is in that conversation, if anger is coming up inside of me, I could even say, like, from a place of vulnerability, like describing, not attacking, but like, hey, I'm feeling really angry about this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm feeling like you're not, like, we're not hearing each other. I'm feeling really powerless here in this moment to be heard. I don't like it. I'm not feeling respected in the way that you're responding to me. Maybe you have a heart that's different than what it is. I don't know, but I'm just really angry, and I don't want to act out of the anger.
Totally.
But I am angry. And I'm going to try and soften and figure out what's happening. Like, I could have a dialogue about that. And I've done that
on a regular basis. I have. And as long as you're soft when you're saying it.
Yeah.
Because it really, so many couples like think that they're allowed to say things, and it doesn't really matter how they say things. Mm-hmm. And so, like, you could say, really I'm feeling really angry right now.
Uh-huh.
Or you can say, like, I'm feeling really angry right now, and I'm trying to manage me because I feel powerless and out of control. Those are two completely different things you're saying.
It's about the heart and the how.
Yep.
Communication is about the heart and the how.
Yep.
The heart of what I'm saying and the how I deliver it. And if I want to be heard, if I want to be known, I have to take that into consideration when it comes to matters like this.
Absolutely.
So do you have any homework as we're done telling this story?
Well, I think that I'm really proud of us. We're so good at things. We're so good and bad at things all at the same time.
Perfectly bad and good.
Yeah. I think my homework would be to start like, this is my homework for everybody who ever gets in a fight.
Yeah.
The first, and it could be with friends, it could be whatever, to always take ownership for what your part is.
Mm-hmm. How am I my problem?
Yep.
That's a huge question. Because Justin, when he walks away and goes, how am I my problem? Well,
because you didn't go process with our friend Marcus. You weren't like, this is why Abby's the worst.
Yeah.
You were processing through why do I choose anger?
Mm-hmm. I might have also said that you feel terrible a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, probably you did. I mean, that's a real thing.
My goal wholeheartedly in processing it was, how am I my problem?
Yeah.
What am I doing that I could do differently so that I don't have to live in this type of tension?
Yeah.
And, you know, what the other thing that I found out, like, I also look back at our first year of marriage, and I had looked into the idea in that first year of like, oh, the reason I'm still experiencing what I am now is in the first year of marriage, I didn't give myself really a whole lot of other options. So in the first year of marriage, I said, okay, I can't leave.
Yep.
Because if I leave, that means the marriage is over. So I can't get in a car and leave. Abby would hound me.
My
right.
mind.
A lot of times Abby would hound me and chase me around and be like, what are you doing? And I couldn't set boundaries.
Yeah. I didn't know boundaries were okay.
That I couldn't set boundaries.
Yeah.
And if I do, that means the end of my marriage. So
that's what you thought. I would never
That's what
threatened.
I thought. I thought that this is going to lead to divorce. And about 4 years into marriage, I gave myself permission to be okay if Abby chooses to divorce me.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to be okay if she chooses out. We're going to choose in, but she may choose out.
Yeah.
But that first year, there was no being okay with her choosing out.
So you felt powerless. There was nothing you could do.
Because if I make any option outside of just staying here and putting up with how she's behaving, that means if I make any other option, I'm going to end up in a divorce.
Right.
So there was a part of me that had to say, okay, part of my problem is that Justin was programmed in first year of marriage, that I haven't dealt with him,
powerless.
that I was powerless, and I need to let him know, hey, actually, you don't need to worry anymore. You have options. You could have gotten in the truck and left. You could have said no and set more boundaries. You could have
seen a counselor,
got a counselor involved. You could have like a million other things.
Yep.
And so my problem inside of that is my heart emotions and how I'm approaching things. So yes, there are further problems about communication that Abby and I need to tackle on certain things, but that was making my big problem for me.
Yeah.
So all that to say, how are you your problem? Part of your homework is, if I have a major thing and theme inside of my life that keeps coming up inside of my intimate relationships and conflict, how am I my problem? Because then you can solve that.
For those overly codependent people who think everything is their problem, don't do that homework. Well, because you have like the two extremes.
You can ask
you have the
those
people
you
who
overly
don't take
codependent
ownership.
people who think you're the only problem. You could probably ask, how are
they
their problem?
Yeah, how are they their problem?
Because how you are your problem is that you don't hold them accountable, probably, to them owning themselves.
Yeah.
So all that to say, that's some of your homework. And if you liked what you heard or got touched or tickled in any way,
rate and review. It's
on
so
iTunes,
helpful for us.
Rate, review, subscribe.
It
big
creates
one. Share. Share's the big one. Go
Post
out and share. Tell people about us.
Yeah,
and
tell
how it's
your
affecting
friends.
you. And let us know. Jump on Facebook.com/The Connected Life Podcast. And just on our wall, tell us how you've been affected by this week's episode, maybe in the episode promotion.
Yeah. And
Something
find
like
us
that.
on Instagram, Abby Stumble, Justin Stumble. Come hang out. Follow us. We'll keep you updated on all the things.
All right. All the things. And
Goodbye.
goodbye.
Goodbye.